Hey, what's going on, guys? JTK here. Welcome back to another video. In this one today, we are going to be doing our first episode of 10 of what I'm going to be calling the reverse retrospective. Now, you probably read the title on our questioning. Okay, Steven, I don't know what crack you're on or what your deal is with Activision going on and what you're doing behind the scenes, but it needs to stop. And let me explain. In this series, we'll be looking at what the community sees as the worst maps and making them look good, and what the community sees as the best maps and making them look bad. Through researching other creators' tier lists like Lex, Noah, and Tim Hansen, I've concluded that the top 5 best maps were Origins, Shadows of Evil, Mob of the Dead, Ground Crovey, and Horizon Drag. With the top 5 worst, we have Tranzit, Die Rise, Blood of the Dead, Voyage of Despair, and Alpha Omega. In this episode, we're going to start off with the notorious Tranzit. After the climactic ending to Moon, the community was ecstatic to see what Treyarch had in store for us next. Tranzit was released and was overwhelming to the community, as the size alone seemed bigger than every Black Ops 1 Zombies map combined. This size is usually seen as a downside when people bring up the map. I think otherwise. Most people think that a simple solution to the size problem is to match each section right next to each other, but these roads that lead to each section throughout the map serve as breakpoints once you get Galvan Knuckles. There is so much open space throughout these points that make it easy to train, but for the price, you have to deal with the denizens. Denizens, while annoying to deal with, have a simple solution to handle them with, that being the Galvan Knuckles. This goes for many annoying things on Tranzit. If you have a problem with the Avogadro, use EMP grenades. If you have a problem with the bus, use the teleporters around the map. Everything on Tranzit can be annoying, but there's always a solution to counteract them. When transversing around the map, you have 3 options. 1. Take the bus. 2. Walk through the fog. Or 3. Use the teleporters. The bus, while effective in not having you deal with the denizens, can be dangerous in later rounds because of its tight area. The teleporters, though hard to operate, can have the chance to take you instantly anywhere around the map. And with walking being the simplest mode of transportation and can be used at any time, have you face the denizens, which already explained before have a simple solution to them. Each mode of transportation can be used depending on the situation. When spawning in or in the early rounds, the bus can be a nice breather and a fast way to get around, while in later rounds, players might want to switch out to walking or using the teleporters. This is what Tranzit does better than any other map like Origins. The way the player plays on Tranzit changes throughout the game. While on other maps like Origins, I find myself building the ice staff and camping in the wind tunnel until I get bored. Tranzit does a better job at constantly keeping the player engaged with killing zombies with the bus and using wonder weapons to get to high rounds, rather than just sitting mindlessly in a corner. Speaking of the wonder weapon, the jet gun on paper is the best wonder weapon of all time. It does infinite damage with infinite ammo, with the drawback of breaking if used carelessly. I like this dynamic with the wonder weapon because while cooling down, it gives short periods where the player has to find other means to kill zombies, making the player feel vulnerable in these moments when the jet gun has to cool down or chasing the bus is what makes zombies enjoyable, not being overpowered. Being overpowered gives short-term satisfaction that makes the player feel great up until there is no other purpose to what they are doing in the game. This is why great games like Cold War don't get as much traction, because even though the mechanics are good, the gameplay is too easy and draws players' attentions away after trying it once. The launch of Cold War was very successful, but it died throughout the season because with overpowered gameplay, it became too repetitive. Looking at high round attempts for other maps like Origins is also much less enjoyable to watch than high round attempts on Tranzit, because the players are always moving around on Tranzit compared to the camp strategies on Origins where they just sit in one spot with the ice staff. Even systems like Pack-a-Punch are done well on Tranzit. Some may argue that Pack-a-Punch is hard to obtain, but with the use of proper technique when leaving the power area, it isn't actually that hard to pull off as you think. Compared to maps like Origins, where the experience of getting Pack-a-Punch feels the same every single time, and then to just later lose it to the unfair Templar zombies that come out from nowhere and can take them away, Tranzit has a more fair Pack-a-Punch system, where the player is in full control when it opens and closes. If you are a hardcore player, you can easily get past the cutscene with the Avogadro if using the wind turbine, and make it back to the bus. And with the right placement of the wind turbine in the power room for Pack-a-Punch, can actually make it a fairly easy process to get through. Let's talk about the Easter eggs. Transit was the first map to introduce two main quests, and while one was being much harder than the other, with each giving off different outcomes in the climax of Buried, each main quest on its own is very simple to follow, but can be annoying depending on your luck or people that you are with. Introducing these characters and these steps into the story was a breath of fresh air from the stereotypical Ultimus crew in BO1. While the characters at first seem uninspired and not lovable, we quickly learn to accept and care for their existence more in Blood of the Dead and in the ending towards BOS 4 in Dr. Toten. The characters in Transit are stereotypical, which I usually never see anyone complain about when looking at Ultimus or Primus, where someone like Nikolai has a character arc of getting drunk and killing his wives. Someone like Samuel Stullinger is more intertwined to the story through the use of the flesh in Richtofen's grand scheme. These characters are great in the story, and I like them, but are just not accepted because nobody in the community is willing to accept anything new outside of Ultimus and Primus. To close off this video, Transit was the first maps I've ever played in the franchise. At the start of BO2, I usually stayed in town because it was simpler for me to understand and handle. As I delved back into BO3, I realized that Transit is a map that took a risk of being ahead of its time. With open world modes like Outbreak and Duron Fong that we have right now, I can go back and appreciate what Transit did for the community. Zombies has evolved from its simple nature in Black Ops 1 and World at War, where training on the stage or camping up in the catwalk with your friends was the best thing to do of all time. But now it's more so evolved into a complex structure through its Easter eggs. Heck, even the developers have noticed this shift because in BO4, the term Easter egg was switched to main quest. Zombies is about the adventure within the maps, not being overpowered or movement mechanics like some think. Making the player feel vulnerable is part of the adventure. Transit starts off with the most annoying setup, but rewards the player greatly afterwards with offering the training spot area that's huge and the most powerful wonder weapon of all time. When those tools are just handed to the player with no repercussions, it doesn't feel earned and disconnects the user from the experience because there's nothing further to pursue in the map. And this is why Transit is the best map of all time. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. The whole point of this series is to kind of just bring like a different view in the community because people are usually always stuck in the mindset of like, oh, Transit bad, Origins good. And I kind of just wanted to like break that stanza because there are good things about Transit and there are bad things about Origins that I just wanted to discuss and further break down. And even though I do agree with the opinions overall that yes, of course, Transit is bad and Origins is a good map, I just want to put a different position that people could bring in. And yeah, of course, if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like, subscribe. Hopefully I can get this uploaded soon. I'm probably going to spend a lot of time editing this out. And yeah, anyways, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.